Hey, it worked. All right. Good afternoon and good evening, depending on which time zone you're in the USA, and super Saturday morning if you're in the Pacific Rim or Europe. So I am Bruce, aka the guy in the blue shirt, and I am also the proud brand ambassador for a company called Rever. And if you want to learn more about what Rever does to empower your frontline team, you can ask me or you can go to reverscore.com. So I am so honored to throw the introduction over to G out of Dallas, Texas, my prior hometown to being in California. So G, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then we will get into talking about Clifton strengths.
Absolutely. First of all, I'm just thrilled and honored to be here, Bruce. Thank you for having me tonight, and especially to talk about a topic that's been very, very important to me now for several years. My name is Gehan Haridi Ardanowski, or G for short.
Right.
For obvious reasons. And I preface this whole entire session with the fact that I am not a certified or trained Gallup Clifton Strengths coach, if you will.
Right.
So anything that I share is just, again, based on my own personal experience and my work with other coaches and all of these amazing things that have happened as a result of recognizing the significance of this tool.
Right.
So I'm just thrilled to be here. And yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so that was our common ground when we kind of were talking offline, and little did we know that we happened upon this tool through happenstance. My story is a little different, but why don't you tell people your story of how you understood the power of Clifton Strengths and what you've gotten from it? And then along the way, I'll kind of introduce some people. Gracie Ruth Melendez is on, so as I see people. And then if there's time, I'll share my little story about, my introduction to what it was called Strengthsfinders. Then it was like, what the heck is that?
And
so
that was
great. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. So tell us a little bit about your experience of now what it's called Clifton Strengths and what you see as the most useful attributes of the tool.
Absolutely. So Clifton Strengths, first of all, I don't even know who in the audience has taken it, knows what it is. I know, Bruce, you and I were briefly talking earlier, and the first time we heard about it, we'd never heard of it before. And that was exactly the case for me. So my situation's interesting, my story, if you will. So just launch into that, or is that what you'd like me to do?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just share. And hi, Abraham. Abraham's a new connection. He was on a meeting with us live last night. So cool.
Awesome. Hello, connections. Welcome. Yeah. I'm so excited about this topic because I could talk all day about it, and hence my wanting to become more educated in it. So more to come on that note. But my story, and I'll try to abbreviate as much as I can. So I did not know about this tool, formerly known as Strengthsfinder, currently Clifton Strengths, until July of 2013. And at the time, I was wrapping up a position I'd been in, working as a financial analyst. So go with me on this, folks. Financial analyst, okay? I was in a role as a financial analyst for just under 2 years. Prior to that, I'd had historically an HR background, human resources. So your recruiting, your training, your employee relations, the person that everyone comes to complain to. So when I accepted my role with PwC at the time I was working with them, the role came to me through networking. I went into it. At that time, I'd never even heard of Strengthsfinder, okay? At the time, that's what it was known as. So I worked 2 years in a role where I literally every single day was beating my head against a wall. I performed terribly in performance reviews. I asked more than once to actually transfer into another role, even if it meant lesser money. I just knew something was not right. For a ton of reasons, it was not a fit. And so July 8th, I remember July 8th of 2013, I ended up leaving. That was my last day. And there's a reason that I remember the date. So it was just after the 4th of July weekend. I said a very positively charged goodbye. Early morning, left PwC in Detroit, drove about I don't know, 25 minutes up the street, historic Woodward, and at a coffee group, and rejoined my job searching network group. And I literally sat down at this table of professionals I'd known for years and said, "Hi, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is G. And oh, by the way, I just lost my job."
Wow.
An hour ago, and people started laughing, and it was crazy. And it was. And I remember sitting at that table, and everyone had in front of them this book.
Right.
Everyone had this book. And I looked at this book because it was like walking into a room, and at that time, just wondering, well, wait, what's being served on these plates, so to speak? At the table. I'd never heard of it. So I learned through this group of job seekers in my field that Strengthsfinder was a tool that was being used to capitalize on our strengths and basically focus more on what are those components based on 34 themes, if you will. Those 34 themes, what are we best at? What do we excel in? And those are the jobs that we should start to target. And there's a strategy for that. Well, never having heard of it before, I went ahead and took the assessment, learned what my top 5 were, and it took me a while to understand them and craft them. And to this day, I can speak freely what my top 5 are. But then just recently learned a few years ago, after I'd taken the assessment, what my bottom strength was, or one of my bottom strengths. Analytical came in at number 30. At the time, and I don't know if this was the Clifton strength shift, but at the time you had to pay money or you had to go through a process to get the bottom remaining strengths. I didn't initially. So it took me a long time to learn that analytical, that one thing that could have stopped me, dead on the spot from, entering into a role that was not going to be meant for me or should have been right for me, had I known better. So that's my story. And that's why ever since then, any chance I get to talk about it, I take that chance.
Right. Well, I'm going to transition to mine. I want to say hi to Wendy, Michael, and Leslie. I am blessed to have some really good regulars follow my live, so thank you. My regulars also know that I'm not really good at multitasking and popping the comments up, so I hope that doesn't frustrate anyone. If you do have a question and we get rolling past it, then between G and I, we will go back to the replay and answer the questions. So my story is a little similar to yours in the fact that I went to a coffee shop in Highland Park in the very nice part of Dallas. I wasn't living there. And I got to meet a guy called Kurt Vondermatter. And Kurt Vondermatter, I was in a team networking group in the Central Business District in Dallas. And he knew that I wasn't jiving and real happy like you were, in your PwC role. And he just said to me, he said, "Hey, what are your top 5 strengths?" And I said, "What is that?" And he said, "So you've not done Strengthsfinder? What is that?" So, it's similar dialogue. So anyway, so Kurt said to me, "Here, go read the book." And I'm not a big reader. So fortunately for me, right at that time, the CD had come out with, you could buy the CD with a code to go do it online. So I think I was one of the early adopters of taking it online, which was awesome. And then here, I'll show you. I actually found I actually opted for the top 5, which is 2 super, super powerful statements. And my experience was, well, how the heck did they know that about me from taking the assessment? Because it was so right on point. And then the other thing I realized that I wasn't using any of my top 5 talents, and I hadn't been using any of my top 5 talents for years. So it's not a wonder I was unhappy. It's not a wonder I was not like you, getting through performance reviews. And Kurt said to me, he said, it's really simple, Bruce. You're a process guy. You need to find a role that you can use at least 3 of your top 5 talents. If you get a really good fit, you can use 4 of them every day. And this is on a daily basis. And he said, if you get the perfect fit role, you can use your top 5 talents every day and your life will change for the better. And he was right on point. That's exactly, I found a role that was 3 out of 4, and I realized that I wanted to get to 5 out of 5. And eventually I got to a role that was using my top 5 talents all of the time, every day, and work wasn't like work. It was an amazing transition, and my whole life changed. It was amazing. So that's my story, similar to yours, equally compelling, right?
And it's exactly, again, I cannot speak highly enough of this tool. And I look forward going as I move along in my own journey and process that I may go the full route and get certified, do all that. I would love to speak daily and coach people daily on this very topic. That's a goal of mine because it's so critical.
Right.
When you spend so much time on the things that, trying to correct the things that you feel are wrong with you and not enough time on the things that really you should be really emphasizing, that's a problem. And
sure.
Yeah. So
yeah, well, it's about, once you understand what your top 5 talents are, is spend time developing those more, and your lesser strengths tend to not get in the way because they diminish, because you're in your A game. You're in the zone all of the time. And actually, I didn't realize that was a goal of yours. So do you know Brandy Schrady? Have you met Brandy Schrady? She's
oh my gosh, I know the name. Yes, I do. I know who she is.
Okay, so I will make a commitment, and if you're not connected to her, I will be love to introduce you to Brandy, because Brandy actually does one of your goals, which is to talk about it and use it every day. And she actually kind of trademarked hers into a thing called Strengthology. So she has a whole thing she does with individuals, teams, leaders, new entry. I mean, she covers the whole employment scale. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, so, there's also something that came out. Do you know who Kristen Sherry is of UMAP?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I've met, it's interesting, over the years, I started doing homework on this. If I can just share this, I don't know if I have a minute, but what I really started doing when I started to first learn more about this, mind you, this was several years ago, but one of the things I started doing was reaching out to various Gallup coaches. This is before I knew anything of UMAP. I think UMAP might have come later, but at the time, I just started pinging people and asking questions and doing more informational interviews. And the people that I met, and I'm in touch with some of them still to this day, it's really interesting because people who speak on this and coach on it are so passionate about what they do. And so since UMAP came out, what's intriguing to me about UMAP too is that it's tailored to for anyone in the audience who may be in transition and looking for a new role. It's also another way to go ahead. It's a very specific tool to use, and Strengths is part of that in sort of, putting together what you want your journey to look like going forward. Like, instead of just, going through the paces of a job seeker, what are you really good at? What are your values? What are you passionate about? Those are the things I think that inspire people. Right. And so that's where I get excited to talk about things like this. So.
Yeah, and it's also interesting because my skepticism was, I thought, well, it's just like a cookie cutter can in a box type.
Excuse me.
But you found some data that would dispel that, right? What was the data you found for the uniqueness? So
oh my gosh, my stat. Yes, where'd it go? Okay, so I checked this out. This is interesting. It says, if you want to find someone with the same top 5 themes, and again, this is based on 34 different talent themes. Okay, so if you want to find one other person in the world, the number is 33. It's 1 in 33.4 million.
Right. So
that's pretty staggering in that order. So take your top 5 for those of you who've done it and process that for a second. That is how unique you and your top 5 strengths are.
Right.
So,
yes, and in the same order is really difficult. I mean, you can get the same co-blending of 5, and like mine. So the other lesson learned I got from mine is I couldn't figure out why I used to drive people crazy, because my number one is strategy. My number 5 is down near analytical and communication. So I could be 1,000 feet off, off the process or away from the process, and I'd be thinking strategy. And then within a nanosecond, I'd be down on the beach like a seagull, picking up one grain of sand and saying, oh, what does this grain of sand do? Where does it fit? And it used to drive people bananas, because they couldn't figure out, well, is he talking strategy? Is he talking tactical? Well, I can float up and down the scale all in one thought process. So it drives people nuts. So, but when you know that, you can be careful about how you communicate, and you can. So I used to pre-warn people. I used to say, hey, I'm moving out of strategy mode, and I'm going to get real tactical now, real task specific now. And it was just that little, courtesy way of getting people to realize that I wasn't going to drive them crazy as much as I used to. So,
well, it's funny. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, what's your top talent?
So my number one, and here's the interesting thing. So we know what one of my bottom was, which is analytical and such. And I should also say, before I forget, I'm in the process of retaking strengths after 8 years. So that's another thing we can circle back on, but that's another story if we have a second. But I'm actually in the process of retaking it. But as of now, my number one is woo. So my top 5 are woo, futuristic, positivity, input, and responsibility, in that order. And here's the thing with a woo, and I struggled with this for years. I mean, mind you, I took the assessment 8 years ago, and those who know me know it's still a little bit of a, because when you hear woo, what do you think of?
It's like, woo!
Yeah, exactly. Right? Over the top, cheese whiz, all of that. And I used to think of it as disingenuous. I think that's where I struggle with it. And I think that's how, and in some cases, maybe that's perceived. But there's a lot more to it than that. So, for instance, what makes me unique about the woo, and I've learned to come to realize how significant this is I'll give you an example. So you're at a networking event, and or I'll use me. I'm at a networking event, right? And if I see people at the networking event that are sort of standing off to the side or don't really know quite what to do, where to go, I'm the one who will go over and do that icebreaker thing and just say, hey, come join the fight. You know what I mean? And hey, come, join the party. Let me introduce you to so-and-so. Make people feel welcome, make people feel wanted. And I think, and if I look at my earlier life, I used to do a lot of retail. I got my start with Kmart Corporation when I was in my teens. And I remember I was I loved it. I loved greeting customers. I loved, making people feel welcome and helping, it, process go the way it needed to. Well, the adult me many years later sees that even then there was some of that coming through.
Right.
So.
Well, what's really interesting is some of my best collaborators have been woo-ish before. So, and it's, I think you're in the 8% or less, right? There aren't that many people that have woo as their top of their 34. Their absolute number one top talent is woo. And maybe it should be reframed as being more welcoming, because a lot of woo characteristics are that you want to reach out and you want to welcome people, and you don't want people to be left in the cold, as it were. So it's a very warming. So maybe it should be renamed warming and welcoming rather than woo, because like you said, woo is a little taboo for some people. It's like, oh my goodness, here we go. Got to deal with woo head. Right?
Oh my God. I was just looking at the chat.
Really sorry, quick. I wanted to say hi, give you a breath as I insulted you there as being woo head.
No, not at all. Not at all.
All good stuff. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Jillian. Thanks for being on. Leslie again.
Here.
Yeah.
I thought I saw DJ at 1.2 in the feed. This is cool. DJ? Everyone whoever, especially on a Friday night or Friday wherever.
Michael. Hey, Michael. Yeah,
go ahead.
I miss some people. So yeah, is DJ there? I I can never go back quick enough, and I don't read it quick enough. So yeah, that should be a talent that I need to get. I need to get some way of it talking to me or something. That would help me a lot. So so come on StreamYard if, you know, for us visual learners that are not so good at learning by reading, you know, you need to, maybe you could do an out loud commentary of the comments. That would be cool. And we could talk to them.
So someone said somewhere to tell us about the tool.
Oh, sure.
I don't know if you did a very good job of it, but do you want to take that one, Bruce, and kind of talk about how people can go about getting the assessment? Or
sure. So my preference is that you can go to the Clifton Strengths website, and I don't have the address. I should have looked it up. And you can buy basically a digital key that allows you to take the assessment. What I will tell you, though, is that don't try and do it in a hurry. You need to set aside at least 45 to 60 minutes of quiet time, uninterrupted time, because the more you can get into the zone of answering the questions and being very honest about, the more honest you are and the longer you can stay in the zone of answering the questions, you will get a much better option. And then the option, again, because I'm not a big reader, that I prefer is opt for the top 5 as the predominant way that you get the report back. Now, you can opt for the top 5. You can opt for all 34. The 34 is a little bit overwhelming if it's the first time you've seen it, or that was my reaction to it. So, and again, I'm a guy, you know, I like bullet points and I've got a high action orientation. So top 5 was great for me, and I loved it. So what about you? Is there anything else you'd like to add? But you can still get it as a book. I believe you can still get it as a CD, so you can get it as a book. Yes, there we go. So G is a lot more of a student than I am. So,
well, yeah, and I agree with you 1,000%, Bruce. So again, it's an assessment, but it's a fun assessment. So the whole, the one thing that people need to take away from this is it's not going to be painful. It's something that is meant to inspire you to really do a deeper dive into, you know, what is meaningful to you and what are you good at, and again, focus on those things. To your point about the top 5, start with that. It's really discouraged from going further. The only reason why I did the deeper dive was because I had known about my top 5 for a while. So long as you know what your top strength, even your top 3, lean into those. Your top, my number 1 is woo. And it's something that, you know, again, I say every day. And like I said, I'm actually going to be retaking it. But, oh, and I'll get to this in a second too. So for those of you who might want to ask the question, if you've taken it before, you know, when's the best time to, to retake it? Differing opinions. So in brief, for example, my coach, I have a coach, her name is Jo Self. She's actually a Gallup coach, and she's been with me on this journey for the past few years. What she was telling me is, you know, I mean, she took it once, but then she retook it because I guess the criteria changed, or the assessment itself changed. Not necessary to retake it unless you want to. Some people say take it if you've had major life events happen. Some people say leave it alone. So there's differing opinions. I'm retaking mine because I've had major life events. I've had a relocation. I've had the death in the family. I've had all of the other big things. I've had a ton of transition in the past 8 years alone from a career standpoint. I'm going to want to take it just to see. So don't overthink it too much. But if you haven't taken it, Amazon has the book. It's now Clifton Strengths, but it's I think it's renamed it. But Tom Rath is the author. So yeah, it's an amazing tool. So definitely do it. And then you can seem intelligent in your interview too.
Hey, Jeanette, congratulations. You just got awarded as the top 20 up and coming career advisors. So congratulations, Jeanette. And I know she is probably a proponent of this tool. But the other thing is, for those of people that might feel they're on a limited budget, it's not very expensive. So it's the biggest single personal investment that I would recommend you make in yourself. Because once you do have the top 5, then you can start to say, okay, based on what I'm doing now, or based on where I want to go with my career, what does my ideal pathway look like if I want to use my top 5 strengths every single day? And you should be allowed to do that. And back to my story, if you don't use your top 5 strengths, at least 3 of the 5 every day, I get so frustrated. I get so demoralized and demotivated that it's painful. So you don't need to do that to yourself, right? And like you were in a job for 2 years where you were trying to leverage off your strength number 30 and you demoralized yourself, right?
And I will tell you, it was a valuable lesson learned. Obviously, I wouldn't be sitting here talking about it probably with the same passion, if you will, as I would be under normal circumstances. But for me, aside from the fact that it was a life game changer, and I wrote this down earlier, I didn't want to forget it. I said it's documented permission, allowing me to look at what I'm good at and not so good at. So like it's permission.
Can you say that? Can you say that slower? That was like, there's the jewel in the crown of this interview. Come on, G, say that slower.
Well, it's documented proof. It's documented permission to allow ourselves to look at what we're good at. And maybe I shouldn't even say not so good at, but maybe what we're not as good at. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of a delicate way to say it. I'm not a big fan of the word weakness. And that's why now that Junette's on here, especially Junette will appreciate this, especially in job interviews and trying to encourage candidates to show their best selves. And the question comes up a lot. Well, what are your biggest weaknesses? And I'll be honest with you, as a recruiter, I stopped asking it that way a long time ago. There's another way to phrase it if you want to kind of get an idea of what can you build upon. Right. But when you talk about what are your greatest strengths, bam, right there. Just think about your strengths. Right. Hey, you know what? I can tell you right off the top of my head, here's my top strength, and here's how I use it in the job. And
well, yeah. I'm a little more mature than not in wisdom, but in physical years than a lot of people on the feed. And people always used to tell me, Bruce, you need to work on your weaknesses. Well, I did that for 15 years and wasted 15 years of my time because I should have worked on the opportunities for improvement more. And I should have kept building upon my strengths. But the problem is I didn't know what my top 5 strengths were. So I was like a little fish in a giant ocean. I was lost. I was swimming around, hitting my head. I used to get eaten by the sharks. I mean, it was terrible. And I wasted so much of valuable career time and also being unhappy. I was not a happy bear. And some people used to avoid me on some days. If I wasn't using any of my top 5 strengths, that was not a good day. And people used to know I was having a bad day. But it's so obvious now. Once you do it and you discover, oh, okay, this really is me and the rest is not me. So let me focus on working on me and applying my skills to that situation.
I could not agree with you more. And, again, like I was saying earlier, for 2 years, right, I couldn't figure it out. But again, talk about the universe talking in mysterious ways. The day that I lost my job, I learned about this and I've never looked back. It's the craziest thing, and that's why, and funny story really quick, 2 of my closest friends, I was on a camping trip with them, if you will. And we were sitting around one night and there was no TV. So we were talking. We weren't no shenanigans or anything. We were literally just sitting and talking. And I said, oh, have you heard of what I took recently or what I've been working on? And I explained strengths. And I kid you not, both of my friends went into separate areas of the house and they spent the next, 40 minutes or however long it took them on this tool. They took the assessment, they listened to me for a while. They went and took it. And we spent the rest of the evening, I'll never forget it, just talking about it. It was exciting. Now, mind you, do anything with that information to this day. I'm not entirely sure how much they utilize it in their present life, but it energized them. And it gave them those aha moments, like, that's why I'm the way I am, or that's why I think this way or do these things. So
well,
it's very important.
Go ahead. Yeah, energizing is right. And actually, back to my story, when Kurt Vondermatter, I said to him, well, what do I do next? And he said, take the test, read it, understand it, book a coffee with me and bring it with you. So that's what I did. I brought my top 5 and we had a sit down. He said, so what do you want to do now? And I looked at him and he said, and that's when he told me, look, if you're smart, you need to start doing daily 3 of the 5, ideally 4 of the 5. If you can get the absolute best fit, 5 of the 5. And it's that life changing, because I stopped doing all this other stuff that I was not so good at. And I was wasting my time. I was wasting other people's time. And I would just frustrate people. So once I started getting into the top 5, like you, it became energizing and I was more likable. Before that, I was not very likable by some people, right? All right.
I can't see that, but
no, trust me, I can be in a bad mood, and it happens to me now. That's why I printed it out again. I was having a little funk week this week, so I printed it out, not just in preparation for this, and I read through it again. It's like, well, Bruce, it's not a wonder you're having a funk week, because you've only used a couple of your top 5 strengths most of this week. So anyway, so that's kind of full circle from how we both got into the conversation, right?
You taught me something, because I don't really think, and in all the years I've been talking with people about this topic, I don't really know if there was much emphasis on ensuring that I'm utilizing at least, 2 or 3 of these a week. I think it's just one of those, go with your top strength and you are the way you are for a reason. But I guess I never really thought of it in quite, I don't want to say a calculated way, but just more strategic way. But you're strategic. So that's your
strategic. That's right. And my last one is communication analytical. So that's that yin and yang, right? I have a lot of strategy in me, but I can also flip to analytical. And here, so another little analytical. I started logging my accomplishments, first time in a long time, every week. So,
oh my gosh.
So because we lose track. I mean, we're all human and we lose track. There's a lot of noise out in the world right now. There's a lot of distractions from everything that we do. The more virtual we are, I believe there's more distractions. There's a lot more shiny stuff that flies by on the stories or feeds or whatever. So this is the other thing, and that was my analytical. I started writing this down and realized, oh, duh. Duh. So again, it's 2 simple things, right? A 2-page document, a little logbook that my recent coach Connie Medina gave me, and it's blue, of course. So I loved her for keeping the brand color alive. Anyway, so we're kind of stretching our time a little bit. Thank you so much, G. And I really missed Dallas. So I do plan to, as soon as we're allowed to travel freely again, I have some wonderful collaborators in Dallas. So I plan to come over. So I hope to pop in and see you.
I can't wait. That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful.
And Priscilla just jumped on. Hi, Priscilla. Thanks for joining us. So what's the best way for people to reach you?
Oh, please. LinkedIn. I practically live and breathe on LinkedIn. So you can contact me there. Happy to connect. I'm always open to invites. Just remind me, if you can, in your invite, how we met here. And that way I'll definitely want to reach out to you. So, but yes, LinkedIn is my home. So the other thing, can I leave with a parting gift, if you will?
Actually, yes, but let me do a go back. Why don't you tell people what your top 5 talents are, And I would then challenge people, you can only reach out and connect with G if you have at least one, right? How does that
I love it. It's like that secret word, right? Okay. So my number one is woo.
Woo.
And it's cool. So woo is cool.
Woo is cool.
My number two is a futuristic.
Mm-hmm.
My number 3 is positivity. And by the way, the top 3 all combined are crazy. That's another story. But so woo, futuristic, positivity. Input is my number 4. And responsibility is my number 5.
Whoa, that one's gonna be a tough one with woo on the other end. My goodness.
But it's interesting though. I did this exercise about 5 years or so ago with some of my people I was working with in my HR department at the time. And everyone had taken the assessment. We broke down onto a spreadsheet what everyone's, there were about 7 people, I want to say. Right. And I want to say out of the 7, maybe 5 of us all had responsibility somewhere in that top 5.
Right.
And we were human resources. So, I mean, it made sense. But yeah, it's my number 5. But
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you know your top 5 talents and they're similar to G, then reach out to connect with her. You can reach out to connect with me too. And you were going to give a gift. So go ahead.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So I don't know. I don't spend much time on Facebook, but I actually just discovered a group that's hugely helpful. So for those of you who are exploring this process, there's a Facebook group I just discovered. It's called Talent, TALENT 2, the number 2, Talent to Titan. And it's on Facebook. Talent to Titan on Facebook. And it's run by an individual. His name is Simon Hurry. He's in South Africa. And it's free. You don't pay for anything to go onto the page. But it's this huge community. I just discovered it recently. I'm attending a couple of webinars Monday, Tuesday that I signed up for. And they're going to cover, and again, this is way over some people's heads, but if you are familiar with strengths and know yours already, you may even want to check it out. But there's 2 days of seminar. He has others ongoing. But there's a ton of, there's a lot of interesting information out there. So a lot of nuggets, takeaways, and it's free. So, and it's a great networking community. So I encourage that.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jay. Just hang on. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. I will go back and review and answer appropriately, and I'll make sure that G knows where to find the replay. So with her responsibility as number 5, I can guarantee that she will go back, right?
Yes, and thank you so much, everyone, for being here again on a Friday night for most of us. And Bruce, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So thank you forever for helping me do these lives. And thanks, G. If you'd like to hang on, then I'll wrap up the mechanics. And take care, everybody. Fabulous Friday and super Saturday and Sunday, whatever you're doing. Be safe. Good night or good morning.